Hey guys, welcome back to Next Level Gardening. Daisy says hello. Or if this is your first time here, glad you joined us. Today is the start of our new garden series that I'm excited about. I know a lot of you are excited too, and that is small space, big garden. Whether you're working with a small patio, a deck, or just a little corner by your front door, this series is going to be for you. It's all about growing what you can with what you have. Now, in this first video, we're going to be talking about setting up your space the right way from the beginning. We're going to cover containers, plant choices, watering, design, everything you need to know to get started. And I want this to not just be a productive space, but I want it to be a space that you're going to love to be in. So let's talk about first the space you have to work with. Measure it out. Knowing the space you have helps you know what's going to fit where. Now, this is my space measured out right here. Yes, I have more space around it, but to make this fair and just relatable for everybody else, I blocked off a 7-foot by 14-foot spot, which is the size of a small patio or an average balcony. While you're assessing your space, look for anything you can use to increase the verticality of the space. So back here, I've got a wall, a low wall that I can put things on. Maybe you have a railing, maybe you have an overhang that you can actually do hanging baskets. Certain crops can grow in hanging baskets. So really kind of think outside of the literal box as to where you might actually put some plants. Now this 7 by 14 foot space is the smallest space that I've ever grown in, and I'm actually really looking forward to the challenge. How can I fill this tiny area with crops, with flowers, make it a nice space for me to come out here, sit and enjoy, but then also to be harvesting from all summer long? You can have the smallest space, you can have the biggest space, but there's one thing you must have, and that is 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight. Now, it's not always necessary. There are some crops that will grow in part shade, and we'll be doing a special video in this series on that. But for the most part, to have plants thrive and produce effectively, they're gonna need that 6 to 8 hours of full sun. And don't forget about wind. Apartment balconies can become wind tunnels, and you're gonna wanna make sure you can block some of that wind, either with a curtain or maybe some lattice work, just something to slow it down a little bit. All right, the next thing we're gonna talk about is the containers that you wanna grow in. Now, you need to think outside the box and you need to get creative, especially if you're on a budget. Yeah, green stalks are great. I'm gonna put another one right over there, but you don't have to spend a lot of money, or any money really. You can use plastic pots, reuse nursery containers, ceramic pots. I got these on clearance for $4. The classic terracotta pot, storage totes, big buckets, little buckets, metal wash tubs. Just get the weeds out first. Fabric pots. I've even seen people use toilets, old bathtubs, or even a chest of drawers and planting in the drawers. It's all up to you, your budget, and your creativity. Now, we don't just have to worry about the look of the container or the material it's made out of. First of all these prior choices are great, but they have to all have drainage holes drilled into them, even the toilet. Although I guess the toilet has one big drain hole. Anyway, they all gotta have drainage. But we also want to talk about the size of the container for the appropriate crop. So tomatoes, a 5-gallon container is a minimum, unless it's a tiny patio tomato like Tiny Tim. I would go with 5 gallons minimum. The bigger the better. And for the larger varieties, especially the indeterminate types, you probably want to go 10 to even 15 gallons. For peppers and eggplants, 3 to 5 gallon containers will do just fine. They also like their roots warm, so darker containers for peppers and eggplant are a good idea. Now, when it comes to things like lettuce and spinach and all different kinds of greens, they have shallow root systems. So a window box, a tray, they can all thrive in shallow containers. Herbs don't need large containers. A gallon or two would be just fine for most herbs. You can have terracotta and have those, Mediterranean herbs growing in terracotta pots where they look so much at home. And the terracotta actually breathes and kind of helps with the drainage. And all those Mediterranean herbs, they like to have really good drainage. You could also have a wider pot and do just an entire herb garden in one pot. Root vegetables like carrots, radish, beets, they don't have a minimum width. They do have a minimum depth. So you want to think about root vegetables and how long they grow. Now, if you're just growing, short carrots, 6 to 8 inch depth would be fine for those. If you're growing long carrots, you got to have a deeper root run for them. But you can plant them in any size pot as long as it's got, as deep as it needs for whatever you're growing. Cucumbers and pole beans need like 5 to 7 gallons. And if you're going to be growing them up, maybe a teepee or something, the pots have to be deep enough to stick those stakes in to make the teepee for them to grow on. The pot doesn't need any of that if it's like a bush bean or a small bush type cucumber. Watering in containers is much different than in-ground gardening because, first of all, we already talked about drainage. They don't want to sit in soggy soil, but they also can't be allowed to dry out for very long. And if there's one thing containers do, it's dry out. So in this series, we're going to be talking about creative watering ideas. We're going to be touching on if you're in a balcony. One of the reasons when I was in a balcony that I didn't grow food, even though I never really thought that I could, but one of the things that would hold me back was we were upstairs and any water that would flow down would go right all over my neighbor's stuff. So we're going to talk about solutions to that. It could be as simple as a saucer under a pot. So we're going to talk about grouping pots with different needs near each other so they can get the same kind of watering. Well, I'm going to be showing you how to do an entire drip system. Super easy. Don't be intimidated. I've taught thousands of people this and they all come away saying, I was making this a much bigger deal than it actually is. And in containers, it's really easy. And it's all going to be easy because I'm literally going to come alongside you for everything we do all summer long. So make sure you're subscribed, hit the bell so you get notified when these videos come out. And if you're as excited as I am, like the video. Now, there are some plants that just work better in small spaces than others, and we're gonna highlight those plants. But some MVPs for my container gardening are gonna be herbs like basil, thyme, oregano, chives, mint, greens like lettuce, kale, arugula, spinach, and Swiss chard, veggies that are actually fruits like cherry tomatoes, bush beans, patio peppers, and compact cucumbers, and root vegetables like radishes, beets, and baby carrots. And we don't want to forget edible flowers like nasturtiums and calendula. And I think we're going to make some room for some companion flowers as well to not only protect all of our plants on our patio, but to liven it up too. And you can look for smaller versions of pretty much anything you want to grow. They'll be called dwarf or patio size, compact or bush. All those things will hint to you that this is something you can grow in a small space container garden. And we also want to make sure we not only design for function, but for beauty. This is where we make it look good. We want to make it where you want to sit out here in the evening or in the morning with a cup of coffee and just enjoy your surroundings. But also make it practical. So like you could have a corner that's like a salad bar corner with miniature tomatoes, some cucumbers, some lettuce, maybe a kitchen corner with some herbs and spices. And maybe we can create our own windbreak with climbing plants like peas or tomatoes or cucumbers. Or how about a few pots with tomatoes, onions, some peppers to make salsa with. And don't forget to leave some room for a chair or something to sit on to enjoy your garden. You can also add trellises, some obelisks. For height, you can put little string lights to enjoy it at night. I can't tell you how nice that makes the garden look. At my last house I had that, and it was such a nice time at night in the summer to just go out there, things just gently illuminated by the lights above. It was awesome. I'll have that here someday. In fact, I might have it here during this series. Colorful pots and plant stands are gonna add a punch of color to the space. Even just throwing out an outdoor rug is gonna add so much life and color to the surrounding garden. Now, you don't need a lot of tools for a small garden, but keeping them handy is important. So just a pot, a box, a shelf. Talk about wildlife in your garden. Look at just landed there. Anyway, where was I? I've even seen people use a mailbox. They mount an old mailbox on a post and they put all their tools inside, their little hand tools like trowels, weeders, gloves, so they're always there and ready for you when you need them. Now, to keep the space tidy, a mini broom or a mini vacuum would come in handy as well. Remember the old dust busters? Do they still have those? Keep it tidy with easy access to everything, and you're going to use it much more often. It's spring right now, and you're probably thinking of maybe early crops, summer crops, but remember, fall is a great time too, so plan ahead. That's when a lot of cool season crops can be put in. August or September probably in your area, depending on when your first frost is going to be. Or keep things like frost cloths or row covers handy to cover up your crops on cold nights, either now in the spring or later in the fall. Or just bring your pots in on a cold night if they're light enough. Now later in the series, we're going to be planning ahead for seasonal issues. All right, guys, that gives you something to kind of think about and get prepared for. Now, as we move forward in this series, I'm going to be sharing all of my small space gardening ideas. We're going to be planting out my garden and watching it grow. I'll be talking about how to grow certain things in pots successfully, and I'll be answering your questions. So anytime you have a comment or a question, definitely leave it down below. Again, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys next time.